is Lee Taylor. Thank you, Lee. I already forgot. Lee Taylor is the State Interagency Council Program Administrator, and we both work at the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities. And we want to thank you for joining us today. Today's session is titled Increased Collaboration Between Schools and RIACs. We have Melissa Goins, who is the Director of the Division of Family Resource and Youth Service Centers. And we also have Kathy Maciel. She is a behavior consultant with the Green River Regional Education Cooperative, also known as GREC. Melissa is going to be speaking with us today on how best to approach and support collaboration between RIAC and FRISC. And Kathy is going to be speaking on how GREC has been able to successfully connect schools in their region with the Barren River RIAC and the outcomes of doing so. And so before I turn it over to our presenters for them to introduce themselves, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you haven't already, please mute your mics. We have spoken with our presenters this morning before everybody came on. If you have questions during the session, if you want to put those in the chat box, Lee and I are happy to monitor those, or at an opportune time, you could come off mute and ask those questions. Also, this workshop is going to be recorded and posted on the RIACs YouTube channel, and we'll put that link in the chat box throughout the session. We do invite you to go back and watch that at any time or share that with your system of care partners as a resource. Also, a session evaluation will be posted in the chat box towards the end of the session. It's very short, like 4 to 5 questions, so please take a moment to complete it at that time. And as always, certificates of attendance are available by request, so you can email me if you'd like to have one, and I'll put my email in the chat box. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Melissa and give her some sharing abilities.
Sharing powers.
Yes.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank
you so much. So thank you for that introduction. I am Melissa Goins, and I wanted to say I'm the director of FRISC, and I want to say in following the not about me, without me mantra that I really believe in, I do have with me Jennifer Madison, who is the FRISC coordinator at Drakes Creek. And so she is going to be speaking with us today too. She's on board to answer any questions and talk through some things. She has experience in working locally with her RIAC. And so we're glad to have her with us today. And so she's with us. And then also, Kathy, do you want to say anything about yourself before we get started? Or Jennifer?
I'm Kathy Maciel. I'm a behavior consultant in our special education division of GREC, the regional cooperative, and have been an active member of our RIAC since, I guess, 2012. But anyway, I'm excited to be here to share today.
Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
I've been at Drakes Creek, I guess, for the last 22 years. So, and the last 15 have been in Family Resource Youth Service Center. So thanks for inviting me today.
Thank you. So a couple of things, it was okay, before I start sharing my screen, I want to say is that my very first job, I was a court designated worker back in the day in Bourbon County. And we already had someone in the region that was our RIAC rep, because at the time I was new and I didn't know what RIAC was. And so something happened with scheduling or something, and the guy who usually did it couldn't do it. And he was like, you go to this thing, it's called RIAC, and I didn't even know how to say it because I just sent it through an email. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to that meeting for you. And so I drove to Scott County, and the famous Janice Johnston was the learning, what is it? Not learning. I keep calling learning because I'm in education now, but she was the LRC resource coordinator at the time. And I sat in on the RIAC meeting, and it was kind of the old model, so it was different than it is today. But I absolutely was like, I love this. I love that we can just like talk about like what, like these kids, their families, what's going on, what's best, what we have, what we don't have, the gaps, what we need. I loved it so much. And so I called the person who usually does it, and I said, do you love this? Because I like love it. Like, can I do this? And he was like, I guess so. So I got to be a part of the RIAC, and actually And we loved it so much that our smaller community, I know there's not very many RIACs anymore, but I helped to start a RIAC in our county because we wanted to be able to talk through our kids that we kind of saw really super regularly. So that's my history with RIAC. I love the collaboration. I love the idea behind it. I know it's kind of morphed. I've been a part of those conversations through the SEAC discussions. I've been a part of the SEAC in one way or another since around 2013. So I'm a big fan. Thank you all for what you do. I know that it isn't always easy. We're going to talk a little bit about collaboration challenges in our presentation. That's certainly not the point of our presentation or the big objective, but I felt like I had to touch on it because we all deal with it. So you're doing good things if you're trying to collaborate and work with others. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing I want to say is that we will try really hard on our acronyms. I was in a meeting recently with someone who was in state government, and then they left and they came back and they were like, woo, I've missed these acronyms. We like lots of words and we like to shorten those words with letters. And so we talk in acronyms a lot. And from someone who came outside, I was not in the education world, and then came into the education world, I totally understand sometimes whenever you kind of come in and out of different systems and different worlds, we all have our own language, right? So I will try to stay on top of that and spell things out. I know that Lee is really good at that too, because she does that at the SEAC. But if there's any questions along the way, please don't just like go, I wonder what that means. Like put it in the chat, like do something to say, hey, we don't know where you're at. We don't know what that means. That's super helpful. And if you have questions along the way, just put them in the chat. I know that we have people that are watching the chat. We'll be happy to answer questions as we go. If it's something that we know we're going to get to, then we'll probably say we're getting ready to get to that. But otherwise, I'm happy for this to be an open dialogue and open discussion as we go. I think that is it. Just to say thank you for whoever requested this, and thank you to all that have registered. I do not take time for granted. So I'm just honored that you chose to spend your time with us today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Why don't I see? There it is. Okay. All right. I'm hoping that you guys can see the presentation. Okay, I see Vanessa nodding. Thank you. Okay, so the title of our presentation is Everybody Wins. And we're going to talk about working with schools, and then we're going to talk about working specifically with your Family Resource Youth Services Centers, otherwise known as FRISCs or Friskies. There's no wrong way to say it. We'll answer to just about anything. You can call it the FRCs, Friskies, FRISCs, Family Resource Centers, Youth Services Centers, whatever you want, and we'll probably answer. And I'll see if I can click. There we go. So we have two major objectives today. The first one, share successes and lessons learned from school RIAC collaborations. And then also we want to discuss specifically benefits, challenges, and strategies for RIACs and FRISCs to work together. And so I want to say a little bit about collaboration. Secretary Friedlander used to describe collaboration as an unnatural act between consenting adults. And I believe that is so true. We are not built for easy collaboration in a lot of ways. If you think about it, our budgets are different, our leadership is different. I mean, when you just sit around and look around your RIAC table, your budgets are different, your leadership is different, everybody has a different strategic plan. There might be some shared language and some shared populations and some shared goals, but for the most part, they're all very different. I talk about our budget, like our funding streams are different. I didn't really understand this until I came to CHFS and understood that, public health will get a grant and it's this narrow of a scope and they can only use it for this, even though it makes sense to use it for this. And so we really are not built well to work together in a lot of ways. And so I think that anybody who really tries to get over that is a hero, in my opinion, because it isn't easy. Our language is different. I was just the other day And actually, before you all got on today, Kathy was talking about this, how she said that she'll sit down with some schools and they'll say, well, we're not doing this. And she'll say, well, what are you doing? And they'll say, well, we're doing this, this, and this. She's like, oh, yeah, you're doing it. Right. And so we use different words for different things, but for the same thing all the time. And so there are lots of challenges when we really try to work together. And it can be frustrating sometimes. A lot of times we think we know what other people do. And we think that they're not doing enough sometimes because we think things are their jobs that really they don't agree that are their same role. So role clarification is super important. Asking questions, super important. And if we take the time to really ask questions and say, here's what I hear you saying, do you mean this? You know, all the things that we know are sometimes frustrating to do, we really do get better results. At the end of the day, most of the people that I work with, I can speak for myself, most of the people, I would say 100% of the people that I work with really do want to do what's best for kids and families. And whenever I get frustrated at the way we're communicating or my perceptions about the way they work or the way they communicate, I can really just zoom out to that. And I do this a lot. I zoom out to that and I'm like, you know what? We're all here for kids and families. They may have a different perspective. How can we make this work? Because the kids and families of our state really deserve that from us. There should be an expectation that those in our field and our roles are going to sit down with each other and help figure it out. And that is helpful for me to remind myself of regularly. So I'm not going to go into any more about that, but I just felt like I could say that because I feel like it's not something that's talked about enough, how difficult it is to have shared work and when you're coming from different agencies and the credit that you deserve if you're someone who pushes through. And so now we're going to flip to Kathy.
So Melissa talked a lot about that collaboration piece. And so when I joined the RIAC from leaving the classroom, I last stint, I'm 34 years this year in education, but I was working with students with emotional and behavior disorders. And we would have mental health providers come in and work. We had some great experiences. We had some not so good experiences. But when we truly had those partnerships, or when I had those partnerships with those mental health and community providers, that's when we saw that total wraparound and that success with our students. So when I came on board at RIAC, we were doing the individual case management, but then there was a transition over to new goals. And so we had the right people at the table. We decided, how do we build that systems approach? How do we integrate mental health and communities of supports into multi-tiered systems of supports, or PBIS, in our schools? And so that's how this work was kind of born within our RIAC. Again, it was the right time. It was the right people at the table. So we started with this conference. This will be our 10th year of promoting positive mental health in schools and communities. Our very first goal in this work was just to establish the vocabulary and the knowledge. What does tiered systems mean? What are tier 1 supports? What are tier 2 supports? And just starting to get that knowledge out to all of our community providers. And then we started opening up the membership to our RIACs as well, who are going to be the key players in this role. So this was our original goal, and we've stuck to that over the years. So again, this is just how do we embed, how do we integrate across our systems, across our agencies, to provide those supports that students need. Whether it's right now, our schools are needing just the universal supports for all students. Our schools are struggling. And so luckily we have the expertise on a lot of our school teams from our community. And so that is our goal. That's what we want to do. Okay, you can go ahead and turn. Next slide, please.
I know, I'm trying to. It's not listening to me.
You're fine.
There it goes.
So first of all, we start looking at the data in each one of our meetings. And whether we're in the RIAC meeting or whether we are in other meetings with schools, with other mental health providers, with other grant people, even within our own agency and GRAC, we're rapidly expanding with all the mental health grants, we're rapidly expanding. So, first we look at the data and that's what guides our work. What do our youth need right now? What are some of the significant issues that we're dealing with? So we look at that. We have presentations at our RIAC. We started providing this data. What data do we need? What do we look at? And each year at our conference, we provided this data. We provided the resources. We had partners come in and present. This is where we get our data. This is what we need to do. This is what is going to guide our work. As of late, yes.
I was just going to ask, I noticed the kids count data, and I'm sure that you guys use the school report card data. Is there any other data sources that come to mind that would be helpful to share?
Well, this is what we're starting to put out now is some of this Kentucky State, the behavior data. The unfortunate part about this data is that co-ops, or as a co-op, we do not have direct access to this data. So we depend on our KDE partners and our PBIS consultants to help us get this data. And we talk about this through our state behavior task group. And with other audiences. So we're really starting to do a better job of pulling this direct data. And a lot of this comes from within the Kentucky Safe Schools data and the report card. Well, this kind of digs a little deeper into that data. We've looked at years ago, and back in the other slide, one thing that our participants at the conference found helpful was that community data, like per county and per district. I think it was back 2 slides ago, but that was a real eye opener. And then the data that's shared within our RIAC of from DCBS, that's been very helpful. I mean, we can tell our districts, you have this many out-of-home placements in this area. So, that's just an example. So that's some of the other data that we try to look at when we can get it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I'm so thankful that you shared about DCBS data, because that is a piece of this. And I think having that DCBS data, I love the kids count stuff. I think most of us hopefully know how to access that. The kids count is released every year. It's KYA puts it out, but through NECASey, and then these other statewide metrics. So yeah, thank you.
And so this is just kind of just an example of the data that we're starting to look at, and that kind of tells us what's going on in the schools. At the back 1 slide, Melissa. So this kind of tells us, this guides our work. Like, where is it? Looking at how are we struggling with the alcohol, assault and violence, bullying, drugs, and then just looking at, if you can see, male versus female. So how do we address that? That's more than doubled just within this year. So how do we address those things? So when we can make everyone aware and all the agencies aware of this, hopefully it helps to guide their work, and it builds that integrated system amongst all of us. Okay.
Hey, Kathy, we've got a question in the chat box, and it says, do you all use school-wide needs surveys as a form of the data you review?
We don't have, what kind of school-wide surveys are you talking about?
Like within, say, for example, JCPS will do a needs assessment across all of the JCPS schools. does all of the other school districts use similar type of needs assessments that they do, that they push out throughout an actual district and then review that at a higher level?
I would think so. I don't know about all of our districts. We have what, 44, 45 school districts. Recently we've put out a survey to see how many of our districts are doing universal screeners or how many of our schools. I do think that some of the districts do that, but that is not typically shared unless we are working directly with that district. We don't always have access to that data. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And if I could
Okay.
add, our family resource and youth services centers are required to do needs assessments every 2 years to drive their specific plan. And so I know that our FRISC, part of that needs assessment is getting feedback from students and parents and staff. And so, and that's pretty universal. I mean, all of our FRISC have some version of a survey that goes out. That's not all of what they do for their needs assessment, but it is a component. And since we have FRISC to most of our schools, they do, most of our schools do some type of survey, but it's not necessarily from the administration and it's not necessarily reviewed in full by the administration. There may be like a summary that is shared. If any major trend changes or something like that, maybe that's shared. But since it's for the purpose, kind of like exactly what I was talking about before, because it's for the purpose of FRISC and it drives their plan, it may or may not capture what a district would want to look at as a whole. But then again, it may. So.
We have had, back to your question too, we have had our districts come to RIAC. Warren County is one of our larger districts that has really been really doing a lot of work in this and started piloting this ISF, the Integrated Systems Framework, with us several years ago. So we've had them come and share their data and their needs and what they're currently doing. So that's been very helpful. So again, we've looked at this data, we've shared what are we doing, what are we not doing. We've talked to our agency partners. And so what we've been able to do is expand the resources, just expand the vocabulary and the knowledge so that we're all can speak some of the same language across our agencies. We do a survey, we ask questions every summer with our participants. What are your barriers? What are your successes? And then that guides our work with our strategic planning within our RIACs of where we need to go. We've developed some regional community resources. Our RIAC has developed some cards, some mental health resource cards that have been distributed out. So that's kind of guided our work then within the RIAC. Again, these are the community resources that we've talked about. And I'll just end this by saying, again, some of our districts, I mean, this is a work in progress. And this started years ago, but what it's done is it has expanded our reach among the districts. We're able to integrate new partnerships. Some of our schools have invited some of our agency partners to their school meetings. And so, I don't think that anybody has the magic bullet answer, and no one is doing this with perfection 100%. So it is it's a growing, we're constantly growing and expanding every year by the knowledge that we have and the data that we have.
Thank you, Kathy. This is a good time to pause if we want to, if you guys have any questions specific for Kathy or the co-op role or any of those things. I'm happy to keep going too.
Michelle has a question. Sorry, Lee.
Thanks. So based on the data that you guys are collecting and the data that you guys are reviewing, how, or what, I should say, what recommendations would you have for the RIACs in regards to what you guys are gathering as far as information that the RIACs could help best support in that effort? Because I know that it's going to look different across, you know, different areas, and then there's going to be different needs. But if you guys don't have like a report, for example, like from like the Friskies, if you guys are just doing like your needs assessment and it's just kind of like staying within the school area, how best could we, I guess, gather information or figure out what roles we could best support you guys within the school setting? What would be your recommendation?
Do you mean to help us gather information?
Well, like, for example, like the, when the Friskies get and do their own type of survey and they're sending it out, but they're not necessarily sharing it out or making a report out of that. They're just using it more of like an internal tool.
Right.
And maybe if they're not even sharing it within like the school itself, how best, I guess, should we be able to support that so that there's some kind of collaborative understanding of what those needs might look like, or what feedback the Friskies might be receiving from families, or barriers or things that they might be identifying if it's not being shared out within like other partners or with even in the school setting?
So I have a quick answer. I'm also happy to let Jennifer, I cannot talk, Jennifer pipe in as well. So my answer to that is that it's not that Frist are unwilling to share at all. I think that they're thinking about their requirements for their work. And so their requirements for their work is that their work needs to be based on need. And so needs shift throughout the districts. If we're doing the same things we were doing 10 years ago, then we're probably not doing the right things. And so we have them gather that information and then develop a plan to meet those needs. And so I think that if there's a Frisk on the RIAC, that's a natural place to share data, just like what Kathy went through. It's a natural place for the Frisk to say, when we did our needs assessment, we found that that I'm going to use this one. One of the parents' biggest concerns was of their students' mental health, because that is probably true, and probably true pretty across the board. And so, so we're, so the Frisk is trying to figure out how to address that. And so I think that knowing that they're doing those things and asking, is there any information that anyone can share? What do you know from your school? It's also a little bit tricky because our regional interagency councils are regional, and there's lots of Frisk. I don't even know how many Frisks are in your all's region, Kathy, just for your RIAC, but we have 888 Frisks across the state. And so it gets a little tricky because Frisks are by school. And so when you have one on your RIAC, you're just going to know that's what they have. And so, if the RIAC says we would love to know about some of the needs in the area, then there is absolutely a way to coordinate that. I don't know that we've ever done it, but it's absolutely possible. And so I think that the best way to support that would be getting in front of it and saying, our understanding is that Frisk do needs assessments. How can we come up with a way to share that information with the RIAC? Or at least like your top 3 needs that you're seeing in your school. And do these look the same? Do they not look the same? This and that and the other. Thank you for the thumbs up. And then Jennifer, do you want to add anything to that?
I would like to add, for Warren County, we are very fortunate to have Save Our Kids Coalition here in Warren County that is headed up by Eric Gregory. And Eric helps a lot of Frisk develop their needs assessment information, and then he takes it back to his office and scans it in, and we have a nice report that he emails back to us, and that is Warren County data, and then you also have your individual school data to look at as well. And Eric is been doing that, supporting us for the last several years. And I was monitored from the state about 7 years ago, and the team that came in to monitor my center, that was one thing that they picked out, and they really liked having the data and graphs and the way it was broke down. So when I do my data for the fall, I would be happy to share the Warren County with the Barren River RIAC when we get that information back.
I forgot you all had that process. It's phenomenal. I've seen those reports, and it's the only place in the state where we have that. So you guys are lucky to have that. So yeah. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about family resource centers and let Jennifer talk about some more specifics. So just to give you a really quick overview, the Family Resource Center, our mission is to enhance student success, and we really see that in 3 buckets. We have an early childhood piece. A lot of people don't realize that, but we're the only place in K-12 that has a 0 to 3 emphasis. It's 0 to 5, but a lot of times, if you have preschool in your district or a Head Start associated with the school district, preschool is being addressed in some way. And we really try to emphasize the 0 to 3 piece, because we know that that's not being addressed in the other way in K-12, and we know that those early years are so important. So we do that at the state level through collaborative work with the Governor's Office of Early Childhood and others. And then on the school level, at the local level, we do things like Born Learning Academies and some other programs to address that. But that's our early childhood piece. And then the biggest chunk is that K-12 population. Those are the kids, of course, that we see every day, a little easier to engage. And then we also have that transition piece into adulthood. And we do have some kids that come back, especially if they develop relationships with us when they need some things. Okay. Sorry, it's hard to talk and drive. All right. So we're going to let Jennifer walk through a little bit about working smarter with RIACs and some specifics.
I came on to RIAC. I had been, I guess, with RIAC probably full time the last 2 years, and I've been an alternate up until that point. And getting to meet the agency representatives and kind of putting a face with a name, a lot of information that's shared. I am able to kind of process that and put it on the back burner for times to utilize that with my family and students. Kathy kind of talked a little bit about the community initiative resources, addressing truancy for our area. And one thing that our local RIAC, the Barren River RIAC, did was they actually did a wrap on a go bus for Warren County Bowling Green, and it had information, about truancy. We were kind of coming out of COVID, and there was, a lot of trying to get the kids back in school. That initiative, the kids had been at home, working at home, and they were just not ready to make that transition back into school. And we feel like getting that information about truancy out to the community was very important. The community resource cards, that is wonderful. Just an example, just for myself, when I go out to make a home visit, or if I'm taking materials or supplies to a family, I always include one of those resource cards. And it gives just a nice listing of support services within Warren County Bowling Green. So it's nice to have that to hand to our families when on our home visits. Again, the DCBS data this year has been for me and Family Resource kind of a year that we have made more DCBS referrals. And, sometimes, we're working with a family, we're working with the students at school, and that gives us a snapshot of what's going on in the community. So I do enjoy getting to have the access to that. And also services shared that are very helpful, made with RIAC. We, with WKU has recently came on board, and Rivendell, you know, they have come and spoke at different times about, they have a new drop-in service available, and that is awesome to have, you know, information that we can utilize here at school, pass along to school personnel, and also our families. And then the Universal Screener Survey, I think that is something that I would be willing to work and share with my survey for Warren County with the RIAC committee as well.
Hey, Jennifer, on the community resource cards, it references to guide a person on the janitorial staff to local resources. Could you say more about that?
Yes, for me, we have back during the fall, I was able to work with one of our custodians at school that she was single, unmarried. She was 19 years old, and she was struggling. One afternoon I was leaving, and so we come back in my office, and I pulled out the card, and so I connected her with the Hope Pregnancy Center here in Warren County. I made the phone call, they were able to see her that night, and then they stayed with her during her pregnancy, offering support, baby items, and now even after the delivery. So, you know, that was one way of utilizing our community to help my own staff here at school. And you find like the family resource person in the school, we're here for our students and families, but then we are also here for our own school staff and community partners. And, you know, oftentimes we are looked upon for resources within the community. And that's a big asset that RIAC has, is having those people all, you know, come together once a month.
Thank you. And one more time, does everybody know what the community resource cards are? I know Kathy referenced them, but do you want to talk about what that is?
There's an example on my last slide, Melissa. There's a picture of one. If you wanted to go back to that. Is there
Right
on the
there?
right? Well, or maybe on your left. Yes. No, back. It's on the
Okay.
right. You can see the front and back. Might need to have to enlarge it. The other slide. You had the right slide.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Okay.
And-
See there,
and-
it's the front and back.
Yeah, it has like the phone numbers and like life skills, children's crisis services, which we know is CCSU within the school community. Life skills itself, you know, the different programs, DCBS, family support, Hope Harbor, United Way, Rivendell, and like Salvation Army, the health department. It lists the family resource centers, information, Boys and Girls Club, community ed. So those are just a few of the ones.
And these were developed for each district in our RIAC, and there's an English version and then there's a Spanish version. And this has been a great project. This was a great project for our RIAC.
And you say district, you mean school district?
Or counties, yeah, counties, I guess.
Okay. That was my next
Counties,
question.
not district,
Yeah.
counties.
And
That was my next question, because I know that I've been a part of so many groups that want to put together a resource list, and it's so hard that I love that you just narrowed the scope to counties.
And also, like at the beginning of our school year last year, one of our first RIACs coming back from the summer was a coordinator from Converna, and she had received her KIP survey from her students. And she come into that meeting and was heartfelt, looking for some answers, trying to help her her school district, her students, because there was some information that came out on that with mental health. And, you know, it just really bothered her to think that there were students in her building going through some emotional times and not feeling like they were connected with someone that maybe they could talk to. And so with her being able to come into that RIAC meeting, immediately she was set up with different agencies to come out and help her there in Caverna.
Jennifer, can I ask a question real quick? We've had one come up in the chat box. And it's just talking about, are there regional Frisky representatives who could speak more broadly to school findings? And what the behind this question is it seems like Chris on the RIACs are school specific and provide school specific information, but is there a way for them to share overall trend data for their regions with the RIACs, not just the individual school findings?
You know, I also serve on our regional advisory council within Region 2. That might be something that we could talk with our regional program manager. Maybe we could collaborate with one of those advisory council meetings that I'm a part of, and maybe develop something to give out to the community.
Thank you.
I will say that our regions in Frisk do not align with the RIAC regions. They're just based on our staffing. They're not based on, you know, anything other than that. So if you look at our map, Region 2 stretches from Bowling Green to Owensboro, so it does not line up at all. That doesn't mean that we can't figure it out. But I just wanted to say that it's if you go looking on our maps, you might be like, what is this? It is completely different. So. Okay, and so I just want to say a few things about the challenges, and I'm happy for Jennifer to chime in, or Kathy as well if there's other challenges. I think part of this is exactly what was just in that question, right? At larger school districts may have many Frisks. One Frisk may not feel comfortable representing everyone, and it's not just in a school district, it's also within a region, right? And so because we are school-based, and that's how we operate, it would be just like somebody from DCBS being the spokesperson for their whole region, a worker at DCBS being the spokesperson for their whole region. Different agencies have different structures, and just so I think it's important for us to understand a little piece of how our partners are structured. And so with Frisk, we have 887 coordinators, and then we have 12 regional people, and then we have me, and that's it. We don't have layers. I mean, and that's not a criticism. It's just 97% of our budget goes to our 888 Frisks. And so 3% of the budget's used for admin, which is very, very small. And it's like that intentionally because the schools deserve and need the funds. And so I just say that because I think it's helpful to understand that when we, like that question about regional, we can maybe figure that out. But where other agencies may have a roll up to like a regional prevention center or a regional office, and they collect data at the regional level, we don't do that at all. It's very, very school specific and school based. So I just wanted to share that. And it is a challenge whenever you have a regional group. We go through this with our regional early childhood councils as well. You know, they're regional. And so you don't want to have every Frisk there, right? Even though they may all benefit from being there, that's kind of overkill. So how do we structure that information, and how do we share information and work together? It's always always going to be an ongoing challenge for us. I'm out of the school building, and it's not a typical part of the culture. I don't know if Jennifer wants to say anything about this, and maybe her school is totally different, but I was doing something at a school, I was doing a school visit at a school, and I was talking to the coordinator beforehand, and we were joking about something, and she was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't stroll in with your McDonald's cup in the middle of the day. And it was just kind of like, there's not a lot, and some school districts do more of this than others, but leaving the school building in the middle of the day, a lot of times meetings are, in the middle of the day. And so signing in and out and leaving and getting permission, and there's some coordination that has to take place for that to happen, because it is not part of the culture in a school. It's not something I really thought about until I came into the school world. Jennifer, do you want to say anything else on that?
Our RIAC in the Barren River, when I would be like support or the backup representative, we would have to leave the building and be gone for up to 3 hours for a meeting at different times. Now we've kind of gone to Zoom, and I really like that. Being able to Zoom, I can be here in my office and work, and leave a little note on the door for the kids, but they're still coming by waving at me right now. So that, for our region, being able to meet via Zoom has been a great way for us to be able to be connected, I feel like. And RIAC is one of different committees that I serve on. So, there are challenges trying to be having your time kind of spread out in the community, because we want to be a part of the community, and we want people to be able to come into the building and say, let me talk to your family resource coordinator, or who's your youth service center coordinator. Maybe we can bridge that barrier. They don't necessarily have to speak with the administration. Maybe they can speak with us. And, that's just important to be involved in all community aspects.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I will also add that because I like to keep it real, not all principals in your school building are going to understand the importance of something like RIAC right away. And so I just want to just say that out loud. When you're the person you report to doesn't really see the value in some of these things, and they're like, no, I need you here. I think that can be a challenge, and I don't think that's necessarily specific to school folks. And also, I think that maybe some of the other folks involved in RIAC have a little bit better understanding of what it is when you're looking around the room, and to understand how important it is. And I just wanted to say that out loud. It's just a different, I think saying it's a different set of values is a stretch, because I don't want to assume that there's no understanding, because I don't think that that's true. And it is a little bit of a different set of values. Education is just a little bit different. And sometimes seeing that I need people here where the students are sometimes is priority above everything else. And so I just wanted to say that. So if you're listening and you're from a RIAC where you've had trouble engaging, I know that there was a RIAC in one part of the state that said, we had some good attendance from the Frisk, and they kind of dropped off, and we're not sure what's going on. I will say two things. The first thing is, please let Vanessa know, because we were able to we knew the coordinators, and we were like, that surprises me, because she's kind of all in on this stuff. Checked with her. She was like, I would love to still be the person. We just had admin meetings in my building during RIAC time. So again, that kind of different values, right? Like she's not going to be able to get out of some of those meetings because those are meetings her principal calls. But so she said, I would love to stay involved. And also, how about an alternate? And we didn't have a strong alternate before. So we got it handled. So please reach out to Vanessa if you have that issue. And the other thing that I've lost the other thing. Dang it. I love it when I say I have 6 things to say, and I'm like 2 in, forget the other 4. Oh, I know what it was. If you're having trouble with the frisk being engaged, it may be that in their building they have a regular conflict that has popped up, and the expectation from their boss is that they attend the PBIS meetings that are once a month, and it conflicts with REACT. And so getting another person there, or seeing if they want to talk to their principal about it, or seeing if they want my help or the regional person's help to say we would like for them to be a part of this. And we've done that before too, where I have reached out to a principal and have said, we really think this person's a great fit for the REAC. Here's what I want you to know about it, so that they kind of have an understanding outside of their frisk why it's important to their work. And so there's some different strategies that we can use. But I just wanted to say all of those things out loud because it's just real. And I think that it's helpful to understand the culture of each other's agencies. And then the last one, is, speaking of keeping it real, the benefits may not be seen from everyone right away. And I love what Kathy went through, and I'm glad you guys are going to have, her slides and things. But, when you talk, Kathy, about the work evolving and growing, right? It may be that when you get started, there's just a few people that really see the potential in what you can accomplish together for your region. And then once you start doing things and you have products and you look at data and you actually start doing things like looking at truancy, let's all sit down and look at it. What's really happening here? What are 3 strategies that may work? And then you actually start doing those things and people go, oh, that's really cool that you guys are sitting down together and doing that. Then more people are going to be interested and more people are going to get involved. People like the Converna Frisk is going to come to REAC and say, I need help and I know this is the place to get it. That might not be everyone on day one. And so for those of you that are in there in the beginning, you really see the potential, like shout out to you. I was one of those people. I was like, oh my gosh, we could change the world, right? And then there's some people that are like, call me in 3 months when you've got something to show me. And that's just real. So if you can, as you're talking to people about like, our attendance is a little spotty, or we really feel like we're missing this piece and we feel like we could do so much more if we just had this piece, like your regional data from your frisks, get a strategy together, talk to the right people and say, how would we need to say this so that they'll see that this would benefit them too? And then more importantly, how can they communicate to their boss that this is going to benefit them too, going to benefit students and their work and the school and all the things, because I think that's really important. So just assume not everybody's going to see it right away. And then also think about how can we communicate this in a way that is going to benefit them directly. I think that's just important. And so a few more strategies. Get specific about what the REAC will discuss, and I can give an example. Our REAC is looking to focus on a new issue this year. We'd love to have your input. I think that's a great example with the attendance and truancy strategy. Such a good one because it hits so many people. It's something that everybody kind of has a stake in, and I think that it takes all of us to solve the problem because I was a former court designated worker, so I have a heart for status offenses, truancy specifically. Get specific about how sharing knowledge and resources will be beneficial, which I've already kind of talked about, and then get in front of the challenges. Our REAC would love to hear a frisk perspective, given that we're discussing grandparent supports in our region. What would be the best way to make sure that your perspective is heard? And I think Jennifer would say, being out of the office 3 hours at a time is really problematic. Not that I wouldn't love to be there, but my boss kind of gets grumpy at that. So could we do Zoom meetings? That would really be helpful for me, is a great example of that. And so I think just being super specific about engaging, and this is true, like we could delete frisk and put in anyone else in the blank, and these would still be true. Get in to think about how that would benefit them, and then be really specific about how to engage that person and how this could go back to their work. And I could go down the list and do it with, I love the truancy example because it would hit so many of us. All right. Do we have anything else in the chat, or do we want to use these questions?
We do have a question in the chat. The question is, are there frisk managers across the districts that could be the point contact person for each REAC versus school level frisk? Specifically, this way it is more versatile to all other areas.
So I think the question, we do have people at the regional level. Their role is different. Let me see how to explain this. So and then Jennifer, I would love your opinion on this. So so our regional program managers are not in schools every day. And so if I were sitting on a RIAC, knowing what I know about family resource centers, I don't know. I think that it might be beneficial to have an actual frisk there, but maybe some of the regional folks would be fine. What do you think about that, Jennifer?
I would think if like for our Barren River, if it's still in a Zoom, if we could still do Zoom, because like my manager, she's in Owensboro. I mean, that's where she lives, and to come down to Bowling Green, once a month, that might be, time constraint, because she does have other, responsibilities in other schools. I mean, how many schools does Heather have?
84.
Okay.
84. Right. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about so Jennifer's regional person has 84 schools. So for her to come to the Barron County RIAC and be of any use about talking about issues in Jennifer's school, or Jennifer's community or Jennifer's district even, I think is a stretch. Would you say that's true, Jennifer?
Yes. And like for Warren County, you have like Warren Elementary, that's probably the poverty, like probably 99% free lunch. And then you may have another elementary school in our district, you're looking 35-40% free lunch. So, that we do have a lot of different challenges within our own district, I guess, a lot of, and it would be hard for one person to help represent 88 different centers.
I see that Michelle has her hand up.
Sorry, guys, but I just wanted to instead of writing it, to explain it a little bit better, but so I get that you guys have all these different areas with around the state, and it would, obviously Zoom makes it a lot easier for people to get on the RIACs and be able to share. I guess my question was more for, is there one specific, when all of you, if you had your point of contact, Jennifer, who is your direct manager that you would have to answer to? And that person, do you all have regular meetings across, whatever that service area that person particularly covers in regards to what's going on in your school, that you're reporting back to a specific contact person of, here's the areas that we want to focus on, or here's the barriers that I'm having, or here's the challenges that I've, developed in this school, or here's the supports that I want to do, or here's the programs that we're working on. Whatever that is that you specifically, Jennifer, are working on within your area, do you report that up to someone that up to some person could be that representative, that's that talking piece, because they're getting all this feedback from all those 89 different service, providers, that they could then say, well, here's kind of the goals that, this particular area is working on, or here's some of the barriers that I've heard over across of 10 schools, or whatever that might look like, so that it's not all of those 89 different frisks that are being represented, because obviously we're not going to be able to cover all of those 89 different schools, but more of just taking a general high level type of need that could be that point of contact person that we're making connections with. And obviously RIACs can, partner with on more of a one-on-one, personal level with the RIAC or the friskies within their area. But as far as reporting back to the RIAC as a whole, of here's some identified issues, or here's some of the things that our schools are working on, or, that kind of thing, to make it a little bit more easier in regards to sharing information.
You want to answer that, Jennifer? I'm happy to try.
I'll let you start, and then
okay,
I'll finish up.
Yes. So great question. And I totally understand why you're asking this question. And I'm gonna try not to be frustrating in my answer. So we do not have that. And the reason that we do not have that is because our frisks technically report to their principal, right? So they point to they report to their school principal and their school principal only. We don't have a roll up. So they're supervised at the school level, they're school board employees. And so our regional folks, the reason they have such large regions is because they don't have day-to-day supervision responsibilities. And so when our FRISC do needs assessments every 2 years, they submit a 2-year plan, and that does roll up at the regional level. It's over a 2-year span of time. Things shift and change throughout the 2 years. Would you say that's fair, Jennifer? Like shift pretty regularly throughout the 2 years. And so we work with them on those shifting. So our structure is, that's why I went into our structure earlier, because our structure is literally like 88 people, 12 people, and like a director, and the supervision and is handled at the local level. So it's a very unique structure compared to some of the other RIAC members. And so nothing rolls up to like per 10 people. It's really hard to explain if you don't live in it. Sorry, I'm not doing a great job. Jennifer, do you want to add anything?
I do report to our building principal, and then we also have a district contact. Each family resource has a district contact at the board office that, we report to, like if we're having maybe like an issue maybe with a family, or we have questions about our monies, our budgets, or if we're needing something for our center. And we meet as a district, all FRISC, like every 2 months. And we'll do like community events all together as FRISC. At some point, I feel like we could, have a discussion during those times that we're meeting. And I could report back to our RIAC, your local RIAC. You could take that, take some information from when you are meeting with district contacts, and then forward that on to your regional RIAC. I see that as a possibility.
I see that we have, is it Delisa Cornett? Her hand is up.
Hi, yes, it is. You're correct. Not too often folks get that correct. Thank you so much. And I'm very glad to be able to be part of this today. And I love the beginning of the collaboration and nothing about me without me. So I am with Aetna. And I'm a behavioral health case manager in the Southern Bluegrass, the Central Kentucky area. So Aetna covers the health plan for all children in the state under DCBS and former fosters up to age 26. So we have been and want to extend all collaboration to schools as well. So if you're having a need or an unmet need, each child in the state in DCBS care has a case manager through Aetna. So we're a little different than the typical case managers. We're in the community. Our whole goal is to improve that voice and choice and improve the outcome of the child, less disruptions, less hospitalizations, less out-of-home placements. So our work wants to extend to anywhere that we can begin to build out and to improve upon that. So if you have a child that you are needing or finding needs, you can meet or ask that DCBS worker. They know who that case manager is. If they don't know, because if they're in a lower level of care, maybe they don't know who that is. But on the back of their insurance card, they can call that office, call the member services, and they can get the name of that case manager. And we really want to be involved. We've been, we try to go to, excuse me, any of the IEP meetings, any of the local agencies to assist. They've got we call it SKY, so Serving Kentucky Youth. So we have a wider array of benefits. So if you're having children that you need assistance with, and we can be of a help, or if they don't need any assistance and you want us involved, we want to be able to partner with everyone. And in each region, you have all levels of case management. You have nurses, behavioral health folks in every region. So reach out and see how we can help be a partner with you all.
Thank you, Delisa. I've got a question. I want to go back to something that Melissa was talking about a little bit earlier. So I know that you mentioned that one of the challenges is the school culture and how, sometimes the meetings maybe for RIAC occur at times that are maybe not convenient for the FRIS because of all the things that they are responsible for during the day and the different meetings that they have. I don't know if this would ever be possible, but just for future considerations, is there a time of day that works better for our FRISC to be able to participate in RIAC meetings? I know that our RIACs across the state have meeting times at all different times of the day, but if we knew that like mornings or afternoons or whatever work best, I'm just wondering if maybe we could try to accommodate it. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm curious.
Jennifer, you want to take that?
Unfortunately, my schedule is never the same. We are a school, we get out at 2:20 in the afternoon. So yes, for me, 2:30 or after would be a great time. But then you also have elementary schools in our district who don't get out till 3:15, 3:20. We have different start times. But that just varies by each school. And each coordinator planning their day and their schedule and their events at their school.
Thank you. Are there other questions from our participants on here?
There's one more in the chat. Is it easier for FRISC for RIACs to go to them, or is it easier for FRISC to go to the RIAC in terms of partnering?
I think anytime that you go to someone and say we would love to have your voice, or we understand that you regularly look at the needs of your school, we would love for you to share that information with the RIAC. I think that is helpful. So I think also making sure people understand what the RIAC can do for them. I love that Jennifer brought up the example from Caverna. You don't have to be on the RIAC to attend a RIAC and say, I've got this thing that came up. I'm not sure what to do. It's new. It's a shifting, need that I had. And, I would love some input. And I think that's probably not the way that our FRISC typically think of RIAC. And so making sure to communicate that to them. And I'm happy to help in any way, share that. It's honestly, it's better to come from another FRISC. So like if Jennifer said to one of her coworkers, they're casually talking about something and says, you should take that to the RIAC. They could really give you some resources, right? They're going to probably listen to her. So, I think the more we can talk about the benefits are helpful. So I think, anyway, to summarize, I think it's always good to go to people and say, we think you could help us with a specific thing, given your role and your expertise. We also think that you have information that will probably help us do our work better. Can we figure out how to do that? If you can't come to the meetings, can you send the information to Jennifer? Or, we can probably figure that out.
And that's a great idea, Melissa. A lot of times we talk to the RIACs about having their designee speak with their alternate, and we encourage them to speak not only with their alternate but with their agency. What can we take to the RIAC that we've seen as identified needs, concerns, whatnot, that the RIAC has the ability to collaborate on and impact. And so just like you were talking about, this is a very unique structure, but I see all types of possibilities with like the meetings that Jennifer was talking about that they have every 2 months. If you guys are seeing some type of trend or need that the REAC can help with. Those are the things that I feel like would be important to share that information with one of the FRISC to bring back to the REAC if that's possible. So
I will say one final thing about the structure that may be helpful. I probably should have started with this, but a lot of times the best way to think about the FRISC is to think about it as a grant. So it's like the schools are applying for the grant for the service of a family resource center, and then the schools get the money and then they hire Jennifer to do the work. And so that's why we don't have the regional state structure like everyone else. We don't have offices with a supervisor that roll up to a regional, that roll up to someone else, that share, we don't have that structure. The schools say we would like to have one of these things, and we say you can under these circumstances. They say we agree to that. We're going to take the money, we're going to hire Jennifer, she's going to do the circumstances. And then we make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So if they hire Jennifer and then put her in the lunchroom all day, that's where we would say, you can't do that, right? That's not okay. But if Jennifer decides to focus on mental health more than she does early childhood, and that meets the need of the school, that we're not going to tell her that she can't do that, right? Because they're pulling down the funds to do, certain things inside a box. And as long as, Jennifer does those things to meet the needs in the school, it's flexible on purpose, because no 888 schools are the same. And if you've seen one FRISC, you've seen one FRISC. And so all that's beautiful until we try to do things like this, right? Where we have a regional representative. So it's just a challenge. And, we can figure it out. We can try some different things, but that might help people kind of think about the way we're structured. It's not as easy to say, oh, who's the regional person that can represent everyone? It would be like saying that about math teachers, right? Like, well, we just need a math teacher on the regional, on the REAC, and they can represent all the math teachers. It's just, they don't have there's no structure for that. So.
Right, I'm seeing some comments in the chat. And I know Lee has said that's extremely helpful, and I was taking notes as well. That is extremely helpful to think about it that way. I've got a few more questions, but I want to offer the opportunity for any of our participants to ask questions as well while we've got this knowledge, these experts on here with us today. So does anybody else have questions? Okay, Kathy, I've got a question for you. So I know that we've talked before about how this work that Greg has done with the Barren River REAC and collaborating with the schools is something that has evolved over time. A lot of times when our REACs are establishing partnerships and collaborating on different things, they run into all kinds of barriers. And so can you talk a little bit about maybe what some of those challenges were on the front end, and just what your REAC did to kind of overcome those challenges to keep pressing forward?
I guess some of the biggest challenges and barriers, first of all, Greg, we have, oh gosh, don't tell anybody that I can't remember the number right offhand, but we have over 40 school districts. Of course, that spreads over about 3 REACs. So it's all different. So the work that we do maybe on the Barren River REAC doesn't always bleed over to the other REACs. But we do the best that we can to try to spread that knowledge and integrate the resources as best we can. But the biggest key that we have done is just to kind of keep our eye on the ball. And we started small. We're like, like I said earlier, if we can just get everybody to be knowledgeable about the language so that they can start embedding that knowledge and the language that we're using into the meetings that they're having within their own agencies. And that's what really builds those partnerships and integrates. It's people starting to use the same language and starting to understand that language and what that means. For example, multi-tiered systems of supports. Now we have people from health agencies and mental health providers being able to say, well, what kind of tier 2 interventions are you using? Or how can I be on that team? What is your team? What is your tier 2 team discussing? How can my expertise contribute to that? Does that? I mean, and again, it's just a constant work in progress.
And I think that that's good for people to hear. So as they hit those barriers, they know not to stop, to keep moving forward, that eventually the work that you're doing, and I think I heard Melissa say this earlier, but making sure that you're able to, the things that you're working on, provide the data and really the what's in it for me kind of thing too, to bring other people along. And I can tell you that that type of challenge has come up outside of FRISC, but we're so just in the RIAC, how do we support communication and collaboration among our system of care partners? And we actually have a RIAC learning series session tailored to that specific topic that will happen, I think, in November of this calendar year. But developing some tools too, the RIAC developing some tools called, what's in it for me, and just to be able to highlight some of the things that they've worked on and that they are currently working on, just to be able to provide that specific information to bring others on board with them.
Vanessa, one of
that
our
idea.
favorite activities, I think, one of our favorite activities within our RIAC was when we were doing some strategic planning, was to build that. This is what tiered systems of support, and then embedding the agencies in there and everyone talking and exploring what is your role. What role do you play in this? Maybe it's not a direct role, but what is your indirect role, and what can you provide?
I would like to share one thing that was also helpful to me when I started, because I'm not born and raised in education, but I crossed over. And I think that when you think about cultural and linguistic competence, and we talk about that, I really think of education as, and I'm sure people would think about, like, I know court system, work too. And I'm sure people, if you worked for 10 years in one system and then crossed over to something else, I'm sure you feel the same way. But I had to really think of it and not get super frustrated as like, oh, okay, I need to think of this as like the different language and a different culture, and just take a breath, because if I was dropped in a different country, I wouldn't get super frustrated if I couldn't communicate. I would know that's like part of it. And so I think, and that's kind of being a little over dramatic, but I think that that we almost have to think of it that way, so that we kind of just know to ask questions, or even when someone's explaining it, like, I don't understand the tiers. I don't understand what you mean. But most of us understand this is for everybody. This is for some people, and this is for very few people. Most of us understand those things, and we're happy to say it like that if we need to. And then people go, oh, I get that. We when you think about prevention in the tertiary, we don't use that word in education. But tertiary is a weird word. Right? What does that even mean? That's not the way they say it in education, but your public health folks are all over that. They know what that means. And so, I think if we just kind of go, wait, I need you to use other words for this, I think that that's helpful. And I did see something in the chat from Michelle. Do we have a cheat guide that can be shared with what type of language that others can become familiar with? I am sure that Kathy has such a thing. Am I right, Kathy?
Oh, well, look for that. Even that slide on multi-tiered systems of support, I would have to go back and look. That kind of shows that integration, I think. Yes, now I will make a note of that, and Vanessa can send out.
And the question may be, can we share your PowerPoint presentation, the slides?
Yes, I was just getting ready to ask
absolutely.
that.
For sure. For sure.
I'm happy to send that out after this session. We'll also send a link to the recording of the session, so you guys can share it. It'll also be archived on the RIACs webpage as well. Let's see, I was going to say something and I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, just like Kathy said, they will be able to share the PowerPoint. I also wanted to ask if people have additional questions after this session, where could they go to get additional information?
So you can definitely contact me anytime. It's melissa.goins@ky.gov. I did not put our contact information at PowerPoint, and I usually do, so I'm sorry about that. If you have a FRISC specific question, I'm happy to try to answer it. I will 99% sure that I will ask you what region you're in, and I will follow up with some FRISC in your area, because it's hard to answer for 888 people in our structure. So that's why I don't do anything about FRISC without a FRISC with me. And I just want to give a plug again, if you're struggling at the RIAC level, like, let Vanessa help you, because she, we've troubleshooted, things before, and we can keep doing that for sure. And Kathy, you were probably going to say email you.
Yes, anytime. Yes.
All right. So I want to thank Melissa and Kathy and Jennifer for sharing with us today. This has been some really good information. I've taken a lot of notes, so as I attend RIAC meetings and these questions come up, hopefully I can provide some insight from this session. Our next RIAC Learning Series session is scheduled for June the 2nd. The title is Helping Teens Build Resilience and Hope. Our presenter is Dawn Berg. She is the Trauma Assistant Care Administrator with Aetna Better Health of Kentucky. So we hope that you'll come back and join us for that one as well. We do have a flyer for our RIAC Learning Series sessions that will provide that information for the July through December sessions that will be sent out hopefully by middle to end of this month. So you guys can start planning and hopefully be able to attend those as well. And just want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great Derby weekend.
Thank you.